Hello everyone and welcome to Rollin'-ish. My name is Matt, and in this video we're going to focus on all the features that you get when you choose the Paladin class. We're also going to take a look at the first of the three Sacred Oath options, the Oath of Devotion. The Sacred Oath options are your subclass, and they're available for you to choose at level 3. In this video, we'll dive into that one, and in a future video, we'll cover the other two options in your player's handbook, the Oath of the Ancients and Oath of Vengeance. So, if you're looking to play sort of a knight seeking to help those that are less fortunate, to defend the weak, to defend those in smaller towns or villages or even major cities with maybe a divine purpose, the Paladin class is for you. It is also often referred to as the tank of the class, and that is because at very early levels you could be wearing enough armor plus a shield to have a very high armor class at level 1, allowing you to take the brunt of the damage in melee combat and protecting the rest of your party in the process, because you are built to withstand those blows while often being one of the maximum damage dealers of your party when it comes to combat. So if this is tickling your fancy already, stay tuned because we're about to dive into what all Paladins get. Typically, when it comes to a role play perspective, your Paladin might be on a quest for righteousness, to maybe spread the word of their deity to the villages, cities, and towns that you are visiting in your journey, or maybe just along the way, making sure that those that are less fortunate and less able to are protected and defended against things like tyrants or evil. So, when creating a Paladin, the player's handbook is going to suggest that you first focus on your strength as your highest ability score, followed by charisma. Then it's suggesting that you take the noble background. And this is because a lot of times somebody that is going into knighthood, which is an often used trope for paladins, you are typically from a noble family. Maybe you're not the direct in line to take over the noble family, but usually it's like the third or fourth born son or daughter that ends up wanting to create their own path. And so the noble background does pair well with the Paladin class. Now, we'll get into the reasons why they want to focus on strength and then charisma, but this is something that you want to take a look at starting with your Paladin table in your player's handbook. Now, this is, like the other classes, is going to break down at what level the proficiency bonuses increase, at what level certain features come into play, and then at what level what spells you have access to. But let me warn you, the Paladin is not a mage class. While you do have the ability to cast some spells, the amount of spells that you can actually use are very limited, and how many of them you can utilize or have spell slots is also very limited. First and foremost, the Paladin is a martial class. There is some spell casting, but that is used mainly for curing wounds, preventing someone from dying, kind of like a cleric. And it's also used to imbue your weapon with extra power. There's all kinds of options called smite that is going to increase your damage output and or change your damage that you're dealing. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But as you can see, starting at first level, you have no spell casting. It really kicks in at second level, where you have 2 first level spell slots. And it increases as you level up with access to second level spells at 5th level, access to 3rd level spells at 9th level, access to 4th level spells at 13th level, and access to 5th level spells at 17th level. This is not a lot of spell slots, even when you look at the level 20 Paladin. So again, this is mainly used for buffing, for healing, and for maybe changing the way you use your weapon. As far as the hit die are concerned, like the fighter, you are going to have a D10. This is a 10-sided die, and you're going to use this as your hit dice when leveling up or taking a short rest to recover some HP. The proficiencies that the Paladin has is all armor and shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. So all the weapons and all the armor right away at first level, you're proficient, which means you're able to use them. Now, you don't have any tool proficiency, but that's okay considering you can wear heavy armor immediately. The saving throws which you will be proficient in are wisdom and charisma. And of the skills, you get to choose two between athletics, insight, intimidation, medicine, persuasion, and religion. So this is a mix of some strength, some wisdom, some intelligence, and some charisma-based skills. You get to pick two. And, you know, being as though you're going to spend the majority of your, when you're building your character, majority of your focus should be on strength and charisma. Maybe you lean towards something like athletics, which is strength-based, intimidation or persuasion, which are charisma-based. Just a suggestion. Starting equipment, you get to pick a martial weapon and a shield, or two martial weapons. I would recommend going the one weapon and shield variety because a shield adds 2 to your armor class. And I'll continue that sentence in a moment. You get 5 javelins or any simple weapon. I would go with the javelins because they have the thrown property, so that would be your range weapon. You get a priest pack or an explorer's pack. And the difference between the two is like typically the cleric has access to the priest pack. It comes with candles, tinderbox, alms boxes, incense, a censer, vestments. And that's just because if you want to play the role of holy person in your party, you can do that if you don't have a cleric. And maybe as you travel from village to town to city, you could hold services for those that might need it. And then chainmail or a holy symbol. Now, this is why I would say go with martial weapon and a shield, because you get chainmail. And chainmail starts with an armor class of 16. Donning a shield adds +2 to that. So you're talking about a level 1 character with an armor class of 18. It's going to make you very difficult to hit with lower level enemies. And when you do get hit, your hit points are based off of that D10, so you've got a little bit more health to work with. That's why it makes it such an intriguing option at first level. As part of your features as a paladin, you get something called Divine Sense. And this is a way of like your spiritual guide or your deity speaking to you. As an action, you can open your awareness to such forces. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any celestial, fiend, or undead within 60 feet of you that is not behind total cover. Not only do you detect their presence, you know exactly which type. It is a celestial, it is a fiend, it is an undead. But you might not know its identity. For example, in the book, they use the Count Strahd von Zarovich as an example. You wouldn't know the identity of the fiend or undead. You would just know that there is one there. Okay, so you can use this feature a number of times equal to 1 plus your charisma modifier. So again, if you're going to focus on strength and charisma as your primary abilities, the higher that charisma modifier, the higher amount of times you can use your Divine Sense. You also get right away an ability called Lay on Hands. This is the ability to touch someone and provide them with some healing. Basically, what Lay on Hands is, you have a pool of healing power that replenishes every time you take a long rest. You can restore a number of hit points equal to 5 times your level. So at level 1, you have 5. At level 2, you have 10. At level 3, you have 15, and so on. All the way up to level 20, where you would have a pool of 100 hit points. How to use it is simple. You just, as an action, you touch a creature, and you can restore a number of hit points to that creature up to the maximum remaining in your pool. So if you've got 5 points, you can hit them for 5 points, assuming they need 5 points. You can't heal them above their HP max, but if you needed to, you could use your whole pool on that person or even yourself. Alternatively, you can expend 5 hit points from your pool of healing to cure a target of a disease. Or if they have multiple diseases or poisons affecting them, you can use 5 points to heal one and then 5 points to heal the other, and so on. Okay, this feature has no effect on undead or constructs. So if you happen to have an undead or construct in your party, you will not be able to use your lay on hands on that person. Starting at 2nd level, all paladins get to choose a fighting style. Now, there are 4 to choose from your player's handbook, starting with defense. While you're wearing armor, you gain a +1 bonus to your armor class. So imagine that you are a paladin wearing chainmail. That starts your armor class at 16. This would make it 17. And if you're holding a shield, instead of that being a +2, making your 16 to an 18, it's now a 17. It takes it from 17 to 19. So it's very plausible that at 2nd level, if you choose the defense fighting style, you could be walking around as a paladin with an armor class of 19. It's unreal. And it's great. That's why they call you the tank. The second option you have is dueling. What this means is when you're wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, so maybe it's like a Morning Star and a shield, you gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls with that weapon because you are a dueler. Maybe you're using some kind of long sword, short sword, scimitar, Morning Star, mace, something like that that has a one-handed property. That would come into play for you in the dueling fighting style. You could also choose the great weapon fighting style. When you roll a 1 or 2 on the damage die for an attack, you make with a melee weapon, you're wielding with 2 hands. So this is going to be something like a great axe or a great sword that requires the 2-handed or versatile property. You could reroll 1s and 2s on your damage. So for example, a great sword base damage is 2d6. Let's say I roll damage and I happen to roll a 6 and a 1. Instead of taking that 1, this says I can re-roll a 1 or a 2, but I've got to use the new roll. So if I re-roll that 1, I rolled a 3. I just took my damage, my 2 die, it was a 6 and a 1. Now it's a 6 and a 3. So now I have 9 damage. It's just a way to potentially increase your damage output. Let me put that back. Your fourth option is called protection. This means that when a creature that you can see is targeting someone other than you within 5 feet of you, so maybe you've got a teammate standing right next to you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on that attack against your teammate. You must be wielding a shield, because in roleplay, it's going to look like you're trying to get your shield in the way to maybe glance that blow, turning it a hit into a miss, right, with a disadvantage. And that's how you roleplay that. So these are 4 options. Each have their own benefits. It's just a matter of who is your paladin and what would they do. So something worth thinking about. I myself, when I'm not a DM, am playing as a paladin, and I myself have taken great weapon fighting because I hate it when I have a big weapon and I roll a bunch of 1s. So I give myself that opportunity for the reroll. Also at 2nd level, you get spell casting. This is where you are going to get access to cast some spells, and your spell modifier is based off of charisma. So this is why your player's handbook is saying focus on strength first, because you're primarily a fighter. Okay, you need strength to wield those big weapons, that heavy armor, that shield of yours. But the second feature you should be working on as far as your stats are concerned should be charisma, because that is what fuels your spell casting as a paladin. Okay, it's your charisma. So when building your spell save difficulty class, to determine that, it's going to be 8 plus your proficiency bonus, which at level 2 is a +2. So that gives you 10 right off the bat, plus your charisma modifier. So again, another reason why it's recommending that you focus on strength first, then charisma, is because it'll increase your spellcasting DC. So let's just say you've got a charisma score of 16. That would mean your modifier is a +3. So 8 plus your proficiency bonus, which is 2 at level 2, plus your charisma modifier, let's pretend that's a 3. That would make your spell save DC a 13 at 2nd level. That's pretty good. Your spell attack modifier is going to be your proficiency bonus, which is a +2, plus your charisma modifier. In our example, we're using +3, so that would be a +5 to your spell attacks. So that's not bad for a 2nd level, just getting the ability to cast your spells. And then from a roleplay perspective, you get a holy symbol as part of your equipment. Maybe that's where your spells come out of. Okay, also at 2nd level, you get a feature called Divine Smite. Now, this is really cool because this is going to work in conjunction with a melee attack. If you hit, you can forego a spell slot in order to use Divine Smite. Now, what that does is it gives you 2d8 radiant damage for burning that spell slot. So rather than casting a spell, you could roll a hit with your weapon. On a hit, you could say, I'm going to use my Divine Smite, and that's going to allow you to roll 2d8 worth of radiant damage to increase your damage output. For every spell slot above 1st, and you only get 5 levels worth of spells as a paladin, right? At 17th level, you get access to 5th level spells. That really means you can only do this up to a certain amount of times, right? The extra damage is 2d8 for a 1st level slot, plus a d8 for each slot above 1st, up to a max of 5d8. So when you reach those higher levels, like at 17, and you have access to 5th level spells, you burn that 5th level spell slot, you'll be able to output 5d8 of extra damage on that Divine Smite. Here's a little caveat to that. If you are hitting an undead creature or a fiend, instead of 2d8 damage for a 1st level spell slot, this turns into 3d8. If you're using the max level spell slot in order to give yourself a 5d8 Divine Smite against an undead or a fiend, it would be a max of 6d8. And this is because the damage increases by 1d8 if the target is an undead or a fiend. So for those of you looking to play Curse of Strahd, I recommend you have a paladin in your party. At 3rd level, all paladins get a feature called Divine Health. It makes you immune to disease. Also at 3rd level, this is where you pick your subclass. For the paladin, that subclass is referred to as a Sacred Oath. This is where you, as a divine warrior or a knight of some order, are going to make a vow, an oath to your deity to carry out your deity's will to those who oppose it or to those who threaten free will, which a lot of the good-natured or good-aligned neutral gods are protecting free will. So this would be your opportunity to take that oath as a holy warrior or a knight of that order, of that deity, and you choose your sacred oath. In this video, we're going to cover the first of those sacred oaths, the Oath of Devotion. More on this to come, but you pick your oath at 3rd level and you gain certain features, but you also gain extra features for that oath that you choose at 7th, 15th, and 20th levels. You'll get access to certain spells based on your oath. You'll get access to certain channel divinity features. This kind of works like spell slots. It's not a spell. It's like a special move, but you're limited in how many special moves, channel divinity, that you can use before you have to long rest to replenish them. So we'll get to that a little bit later. At 4th level, and again at 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th levels, you can increase 1 ability score by 2 points or 2 ability scores by 1 point. For those of you keeping score at home, anytime your ability score reaches an even number, like 15 to 16 or 11 to 12, anytime you're going from an odd number to an even number, that's when your modifier increases. So when you're looking at these levels and you're looking to think about taking an ability score modifier, just make sure you're keeping that in mind, that you might need to slowly do this over time, maybe at 4th and 8th or 8th and 12th, or take one score at a time and bump them up by 2 to make sure you get that improvement. There are also, this is where, if your campaign, your DM allows it, you could forego the ability score modifier option and take a feat instead. But talk to your dungeon master before you make that decision. At 5th level, you get extra attack. So anytime you take the attack action as part of your turn, instead of 1 swing, you get 2. At 6th level, you get a feature called Aura of Protection. This means that whenever a friendly creature within 10 feet of you makes a saving throw, that creature gains a bonus to that saving throw equal to your charisma modifier. Again, another reason why you want to focus on charisma as a paladin. Maybe not first, go strength first because you're a fighter. But again, this is another good reason why you want to increase your charisma. So just standing within 10 feet of you, if that teammate of yours needs to make a saving throw, they're going to get a boost depending on what your charisma modifier is. If your charisma score is a +2 or a +3, they're adding that to their roll. At 18th level, that range goes from 10 feet near you to 30 feet near you. So just being in your presence is going to bolster your teammates with this aura of protection. At 10th level, you get a feature called an Aura of Courage. It works similarly to the Aura of Protection, but when a friendly creature is within 10 feet of you, they can't be frightened while you're conscious, because you just being near them is making them brave. It's like, whew, I got the Paladin here. Thank goodness. I'm feeling good about myself. At 18th level, this radius increases from 10 feet to 30. At 11th level, you get a feature called Improved Divine Smite. This means that whenever you hit a creature with a melee weapon, the creature takes an extra d8 damage. This has nothing to do or it doesn't stop your existing Divine Smite, right? Because I want to burn a spell slot and get 2d8 extra damage. At 11th level, that 2d8 becomes 3d8. So again, that's going to continue to stack against creatures that are undead or fiends, because at 11th level, undead and fiends get an extra d8 of damage from your Divine Smite. So at 11th level, instead of 3, it becomes 4. So this is taking your Divine Smite and it is adding extra damage to it by making you more powerful. So that's really cool. At 14th level, you get a feature called Cleansing Touch. So you can use your action to end one spell on yourself or one willing creature that you touch. You could use this feature equal to what your charisma modifier is. So again, if your charisma modifier is a +3, you could use this Cleansing Touch feature 3 times. So again, the higher you get that charisma modifier, the more you can use features like this. And this is a pretty good one, because imagine that you are struck by the blindness deafness curse. So maybe I'm a bad mage and I cast blindness on you as a paladin. Now you can't see. You're swinging at disadvantage, or you're using your spells at disadvantage because you're unsure of where your target is. Well, you could use Cleansing Touch to end that on yourself, but it takes up your action, so be mindful of how you do that. Okay? Before we get into the Sacred Oaths, I do want to take a minute to talk about breaking such an oath. Now, this is going to vary between dungeon masters, but I myself am going to focus on the tenets of your oath more than I am your alignment and how you're playing to your alignment. Because the tenets of your faith are trying to dictate or guide your behavior. We'll get into that in a moment. But as a penalty for someone who is clearly not behaving the way their oath is suggesting they should as a paladin, your dungeon master has every right to forsake you as a deity, forcing you to either choose a new class or perhaps assign you the Oathbreaker Paladin oath. Well, it's not really an oath, but it's a subclass. That subclass is not featured in your player's handbook. It's featured in the Dungeon Master's Guide for folks like myself, Dungeon Masters, to impose on you should you break your oath. So if it's something that you want to do, just talk to your Dungeon Master about that. Okay, now let's talk about the first of your three options at third level, the subclass options called Sacred Oaths. The first one is called the Oath of Devotion. Now, this is going to be those that are the loftiest ideals of justice, virtue, and order. This is going to be your White Knight, your Holy Warrior, something like that. The Knight in Shining Armor, the do-gooder. The tenets of the devotion are going to be honesty. So your expectation is to not lie or cheat. Let your word be your promise. Courage, to never fear to act, though caution is wise. Compassion, aid others, protect the weak, punish those that threaten them. Honor, treat others with fairness and let your honorable deeds be an example to them. Duty, be responsible for your actions and their consequences. Protect those who entrusted to your care and obey those who have authority over you. That is why I say that I'm going to review these more than I am how you are behaving to your alignment. As a paladin and as your dungeon master, if I catch you breaking these, at first I might give you a warning and roleplay that as your deity. Hey, this is not what we agreed about, you know? If I catch you again doing it, this is where I myself, as your dungeon master, might roleplay your deity, forsaking you and casting you out of the paladin order and forcing you to choose another class. Or I might forsake this Oath of Devotion subclass and assign you the Oathbreaker. And that comes with its own tenets and things that you get. So just beware when you're playing your paladin to take your oath seriously. There are a certain spells that you're going to have access to as a Oath of Devotion paladin. At third level, you get something called Protection from Evil and Good. It just prevents you from being charmed or frightened. Sanctuary protects you in a way that forces your attacker to make a wisdom saving throw to even target you, and if they fail, they have to target somebody else. At fifth level, you get Lesser Restoration that can stop the conditions such as blinded, deafened, paralyzed, or poisoned. Zone of Truth creates a 15-foot radius sphere centered on a point you choose, where those who fail the charisma saving throw must tell the truth while in that zone while that spell is going. Ninth level, you have Beacon of Hope. This is going to subject each of your targets to a wisdom saving throw. Advantage on wisdom saving throws and death saving throws. And they regain the max number of hit points possible. So if they take on a healing spell or drink a healing potion, they don't have to roll the dice. They're going to heal the max. And like I said, advantage on wisdom saving throws and advantage on death saving throws. Beacon of Hope is a great spell to put on somebody that is not as strong as you. So maybe target the mage that has a lower health pool and a lower healing armor class. Put a Beacon of Hope on them. Maybe you're protecting an NPC and you're trying to deliver them to safety. Put a Beacon of Hope on them. Dispel Magic is what it sounds like. It's a third level spell, so any spell effect that is third or lower matching your Dispel Magics is going to fail. Anything higher than that, you might have to roll for it with a DC being 10 plus the spell's level. So if you're trying to dispel a 6th level spell with a 3rd level Dispel Magic, you're going to have to make some kind of ability check, and you have to roll a 16 or higher. Remember, 10 plus the spell that you're trying to negate's level. 13th level, you get Freedom of Movement, where you're not impeded by difficult terrain, and your speed can't reduced from being paralyzed or restrained. Guardian of Faith is a spell that lasts for 8 hours, essentially you create a spectral guardian that protects you or protects an area that you assign it. Essentially, any hostile creature that moves within 10 feet of the guardian must make a dex saving throw. Otherwise, they're taking 20 radiant damage on a fail or 10 damage on a successful one. Your guardian is going to disappear once it has dealt a total of 60 damage. And that guardian can last for up to 8 hours in that spot. Finally, at 17th level, you get access to the Commune spell, where you can ask your deity up to 3 questions. Typically, they are yes or no questions. Sometimes, at your DM's discretion, because they are role-playing that deity, they could answer other than yes or no and maybe give you some generalities, like it's in that direction or head east, right? Nothing overcomplicated, just a short phrase, if not yes or no. Flame Strike is another spell that you'll have access to at 17th level. Basically, it's a vertical column of fire. It's a 10-foot radius. It's 40 feet high, and anything that is in that radius must make a dex saving throw or take 4d6 fire and 4d6 radiant damage because of the holy flame that you are causing. These are the spells that you will get automatically at these levels when you're an Oath of Devotion Paladin. Let's talk your channel divinity options. That is something else that you have access to. Sacred Weapon is one. As an action, you can imbue one weapon that you're holding with positive energy. For 1 minute, you can add your charisma modifier to attack rolls made with that weapon. Also, your weapon is going to emit a 20-foot radius of bright light and a 20-foot radius beyond that of dim light. Okay. You also have an option called Turn the Unholy. As an action, you present your holy symbol and you speak a quick prayer, and any fiends or undead are your target. If they can see or hear you, being within 30 feet, they need to make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they are turned for a minute. A turned creature must spend its turn moving as far away from you as possible and can't willingly move to a space within 30 feet of you. It also can't take reactions, so no opportunity attacks from it. During its action, it can either only dash to escape you or move far away from you as possible, or if it's got nowhere to go, all it can do is hold a dodge. So pretty good way to get them to turn and then waste their turns moving as far away from you as possible. At 7th level, you get a channel divinity feature called Aura of Devotion. You and friendly creatures within 10 feet of you can't be charmed while you're conscious. At 18th level, that aura extends from 10 feet to 30 feet. At 15th level, you get Purity of Spirit. You're always under the effects of protection from good and evil, so you're going to be really hard to charm and frighten. At 20th level, you get a feature called Holy Nimbus. For 1 minute, bright light shines from you in a 30-foot radius and another 30 feet beyond that in dim light. Whenever an enemy creature starts its turn in the bright light, that 30-foot radius immediately from you, they're going to take 10 radiant damage just for being that close to you. In addition, during that duration, you have advantage on saving throws and against spells casts by undead or fiends. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you long rest. So this is the Holy Warrior of Holy Warriors. If you're going to make religion and your deity a very key feature of your backstory and what you plan to play for your paladin, the Oath of Devotion is going to be for you. But don't let me catch you breaking your oath, because I will make you an oath breaker. I'm just kidding. I'm not even your DM. This is a video. Thank you for tuning in. Our next video, we are going to cover the other 2 oaths, the Oath of the Ancient and the Oath of the Vengeance. Until then, keep rolling those dice, and we'll see you at the table.